Hello and welcome to Beautifully Authentic, Even When Shit Happens. I'm your host, Cindy Pakalak, and I am so glad that you are here. Today is episode 8, and we are talking about, have you ever been called a bitch or something like it? Have you ever been referred to as something that you do not identify with and you were so offended? Has it ever happened to you? Has anybody ever called you something and it totally offended you, hurt your heart, or made you angry because that is not at all who you are, or that is not who you have been portraying yourself all this time to be? This happened to me. And as it unravels and years go by, my perception is so different. But at the time that this happened, I was so hurt and offended. Now, I have a completely different perspective, and I'll get to that. But have you ever had someone make an assumption about who you are without really knowing you or barely knowing you? And they make this entire assumption based on little evidence that you are combative or awful or arrogant or a bitch or any of these things or judgments that people can do to one another. I mean, we see a lot of that right now, don't we? A lot of assumptions about people and others, and not as much understanding as I'd like to see. How about you? Anyway, I once went with my besties, and we went and had a wonderful day together. And we were near this woman who was helping us out with something for our group. And we were laughing and interacting and being ourselves, us four friends. And we were having the greatest time. One of our friends was having a very big milestone birthday, and this was a great time for us to share our stories about our joys with her and laugh and talk and plan about the years ahead of us and what we want to do, and just having an absolutely wonderful time and talking about life and life lessons and just laughing and really relaxed and comfortable. Unfortunately, this woman who was helping us out with something was watching us and taking us in, if you will, while she was helping us complete this task that we were working on, because she had a skill we didn't and she was helping us out. And by the end of our time together, which was approximately an hour and a half, she, as I'm talking with my friends, chooses to say this to me, and I'm not saying this. My friends are saying this now when we talk about it, but she chooses me, and my friend said, of all the people of our group, for her to say this to you, it's ridiculous. But she, after listening to us and watching us interact and stuff like that, coming near the end of our time together, she goes, well, you're really arrogant, aren't you? And I kind of looked at her because I wasn't even talking to her. We were talking amongst ourselves, and she was with us and amongst us doing this task and showing us something while we were doing our own typical normal thing. And I was so shocked and flabbergasted that this woman that I barely know, that I've barely spoken to, made the assumption that not only me out of all of us was arrogant, because nobody in the group is arrogant, but I was a quieter member of the group. Less, I say less. I mean, when I'm with my friends and it's just us, I'm me and I say a heck of a lot more. But while we were doing this task with this woman and we were talking and things like that, I just typically am a quieter participant in the group when we're doing a task with a new individual around. So it was just very weird that she would say that. And then given me, my personality, who I am, who I've always been, people who know me would understand this, for her to say that I was arrogant, let me give you a bit more backstory. We were talking about parenting and becoming empty nest parents and raising children and how beautiful it can be, how difficult it can be, what a different phase of life it is. We're talking things like shedding tears and having laughs and having hard times, but at the same time, coming through it, and we're going to be fine, and laughing and giggling. And this individual at that time had younger children than we did and was struggling. And I still do not know to this day how she derived that I was arrogant based on a conversation I was having with my besties about how we thrived and survived and struggled, our children growing and launching and moving out of home, and how hard that was for us. The context doesn't even make sense, but that's not the point. The point today is I have had experience with someone making a judgment against me and actually being brave enough to say it to me and out loud, and me going, what the hell? And it took me a really long time. I was just like, I am so perplexed. I don't get it. Like I didn't even talk about it for a long time. I was just like, this makes no sense. Who the heck is this person? She clearly has no accurate idea of who I am or what I'm about. And so I shouldn't give this any time. Years later, I'm talking with one of my besties and I'm like, remember that time? Because we're talking about difficulties and folks who are struggling with having judgments against them and how hard it can be and how we don't want to stay in our head about it, how we want to process that stuff quickly so that it's not eating our guts and taking up real estate in our mind. And I said, yeah, remember that time when we were doing that task, all of us, and so-and-so said to me, well, you're arrogant, aren't you? And she, one of my besties, looks at me and goes, what? What? Like, I didn't know that was said. And why the heck would she say it to you? I'm looking at her and I'm like, I have no clue. But back then, I let it take up too much real estate in my mind. And for those of you that don't know or haven't heard my previous podcasts, I have had Crohn's disease, and I was really, really sick for a long time. And I've had strokes in the past, and giving up too much real estate in my mind and too much stomach acid and stress in my guts did not do me well. So giving too much thought and anxiety to too much concern to people who make judgments that really have no right to do so at all because they don't have any evidence to support it should not have been something that I allowed myself to deal with for very long. So when I recently brought this up to one of the friends who was there that day, she said, oh my gosh, I did not realize that she had said that to you. And if she had said that and I had known about it, I would have addressed it. Because if she knew you at all, she would know how inaccurate that is, how crazy that is. And I was like, yeah, I was just thinking about it because I'm thinking of some of the young women that I connect with today and how the struggle is still real for folks who make judgments or say stupid things to others because of the stuff that's happening for them internally, and they don't keep their inside voice to themselves, and they say nasty, horrible things and make judgments to others. And so how this affects us and our health and our marriages and our parenting when we give up too much of ourselves and our thought life and our physical health and rest to people who make judgments and people who talk when they should be closing their mouth. So today I asked you, has anybody ever called you a name like that or made an assumption or said something horrible to you that was not accurate, that just had you tied up for a time because you were just flabbergasted. Like, how the heck have you come up with that assumption? That is not who I am. Did you find yourself defending? Did you find yourself rationalizing? Where does your mind go when this type of thing happens? I'm curious. I would love to hear, where does your mind go when this has happened to you? Do you start rolling off in your mind all of these reasons why how they're wrong? Or do you defend yourself and feel angry? Or have you spoken up immediately and been right there in the moment to be like, hey, now that's not accurate. Don't speak to me that way. I'm so curious. I know there's all sorts of ways that we deal with it as humans. But my older self, the self that didn't have the tools that I have now, sure could have used some insight from the lady I am now. And that is to say, if I could go back, I would say to her in that moment, please don't let that sit. Look right at her in her eyes and say, pardon me? Did I hear you correctly? Did you just say that? And take a long, quiet minute while looking in the eyes of the other individual. Because what happens, folks, friends, is people say and do really stupid shit to others because they're either hurting, lacking, or they are completely lacking empathy or social skills, or they're just angry and making judgment. Whatever it is for these folks in these circumstances, they half the time are not aware at all. So I have zero intention, and I don't think it's wise to pick fights and do it back. What I do think is wise, and what I will do now, is to make eye contact for a moment, quietly, and look at them. Give them a second to look me in the eyes. Have a deep breath of my own. And if that in itself doesn't bring them to go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, did I just say that out loud? Because that actually works. Then, if that doesn't work or that doesn't happen, the gift you're going to give to yourself is dealing with it in the moment. So you don't go home and you don't stew and you don't get upset and you don't get stressed and you don't get sick and it doesn't become a prolonged problem. So someone says something horrible and makes a horrible judgment. I'm not just saying silly stuff that we should let slide. I mean, there's a lot of things we should just let slide. Things that we should not pay attention to. You know that person, they're having a bad day. Don't even give it a moment. Let them sleep on it. They're probably going to come tomorrow and go, oh my gosh, did I say that out loud? I'm so sorry. But for folks who really don't know you, and they might have access to you for a little while, and seemingly just your energy seems to set them off or bug them, these folks, what they're saying and doing is not personal, but it is directed at you. So if you can let it be, let it be. But if this is someone who's really made a judgment and you know that it's going to be hard for you to sit with it, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you looking at them in the eye immediately, gathering yourself for a moment, because it actually is really important that you do that. Just breathe for a second and just make eye contact. And then if they don't acknowledge what they've just said, if they don't say anything, then you say, did I actually hear you correctly? Do you want to repeat that? Often they won't repeat it because they know they sound like an ass. If they do repeat it, they're more likely to stand behind what they just said, and they might possibly be a little aggressive. So again, time is important. Give yourself a minute, give yourself a breath, collect your thoughts, relax your body, and just say, you don't know me at all, and walk away. Or say, that is completely inaccurate. I would appreciate it if you'd stop making assumptions about things you have no evidence for, and walk away. The reason I suggest this, because most people and faiths and religions and all kinds of things will say, turn the other cheek. But here's the truth. I don't actually believe that any of those faiths, religions, and all those things actually meant that. I think that humans implemented that in the assumption of what should a life of being a person of peace, religion, or faith should look like. I actually think being a good, healthy, well-rounded person of any kind, faith, no faith, or whatever, I believe that we should have value for ourselves. And especially if you think you were created by a creator. Really? You think she created, whoever created you, your creator created you for you to be a doormat for narcissists, psychopaths? No, I disagree. I don't think that's accurate. I think it's absolutely 100% okay when someone casts judgment on you, to you. Do not go running around the city trying to whack weasels and spin plates for so-and-so said that you said, so-and-so said that you were. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm only referring to those people who are in your space, in your face, making judgments, calling names, or saying something horrible to you. That is what I'm referring to today. Those folks deserve a very calm, concise, collected you to respond. Why? Because, number one, you will go home with that horrible thing being spoken over you, and you will twist and turn in turmoil about it. And that is not okay. And number two, hopefully, if a few people stare, locked eyes, calm and collected, and even ask, did you just say that to me? Hopefully, if they're not going to spend the rest of their life destroying other people's lives, hopefully they will come to understand that those types of things are not appropriate to say out loud to others. That is not the way that we interact with each other. So it's important that you value yourself. Don't forget, little eyes are watching, others are watching. And when you calmly and gracefully have boundaries, good, solid, healthy boundaries, not screaming or yelling or picking fights or throwing things. That's not a good, healthy boundary. When we have good, healthy boundaries, it gives others the opportunity and example of how they too can care and respect for and look after themselves. I have women in my life that are way older than I am, still struggling with people in their inside circle abusing them. It is painful to watch. It is heartbreaking to see. And I don't want that for you. That is no life to live, especially not for 70, 80 years. The life you want to live needs to be a life you are proud of, a life you feel good in. And when someone comes along who is unhappy, unhinged, or judgmental, you can quickly sort, because you don't need that. You don't need that energy. You don't need those folks in your life taking up time, because your time is precious. I'm going to give you one more example. I have many, but one more that comes to mind quickly, just to hit this point home. I know this lovely, lovely young lady, and she was picked on when she was young. And there was a woman who I know also, who for some reason decided she was just going to pick on this other young lady. And these are grown women now, but I've known them for a very, very long time. And the one young woman has systematically tried to destroy many, many relationships and humans. And she one day was leaving a store and said to this other young lady who's very lovely, very soft-spoken, very kind-hearted, very gentle, non-invasive, would never do anything to hurt another human. But this other young lady walks out of a store one day, and as she's walking by, goes, "Whore." Yes, I just said that. The woman said that to her. For no reason. But this woman did stuff like this all over town to all kinds of women all the time because she was living a life of terrible indiscretion, and she was extremely bitter and angry and just wrecked everything like a tornado that she came in touch with. But she said this to this lovely, kind-hearted, sweet young lady one day. And when it came to my attention, because that young lady was very upset and very stressed, but she had stood up and done her best and stood up for herself, even though that in itself was difficult, because when you're kind-hearted and soft-hearted, the last thing you want to do is go toe-to-toe with someone who's nasty. It's the last thing you want to waste your breath on or your time on. But she did, and I was really, really proud of her, and I was really glad that she shared this story with me. But what I'm getting at is people like that go around with the intention of creating chaos, havoc, bitterness, sowing sadness and pain to others, should not be given time in your life and inner circle. However, if it's directed directly at you and you can't make eye contact, even if you don't want to say anything, even if you don't want to say a word, but if you can't just stand and look them in the eye for a moment before walking away, these folks keep coming and they keep popping up until you show you, until you show up for you, until you say no more inside of you, until your brain, body, heart, and soul align with your value, and you look someone like that in the eye, even for only a moment, you set yourself back. You need to completely align with who you are, and that is a person of value and as much value as anyone else. And for folks that don't value other humans and go around doing horrific things and acts like this, we need to look them in the eye for a moment. And if you're able to calmly address, did you actually just say that to me? Do that. But if not, you can just stand there and make eye contact and stand there as long as you like, because people who do acts like this to other individuals are out for pain and gain and nothing else. And you need to be you, the real you. If you're a person who is gentle and kind and you have a big heart, it's going to be difficult, but the best gift you can give yourself, especially if this is you, the best gift you can give yourself is to look someone like that in the eye. And even if you're just saying it inside your head to yourself, to your own body, no more. No more. No more will I tolerate it. No more will I stand for it. I am valuable, and you will not speak to me like that. And even if it's just eye contact. I've had the experience a couple of times since my initial first time of doing this to actually have the opportunity to just make eye contact and say something in response immediately. Like, a lot of people feel like they freeze and they get scared and they don't have their words. Believe me, you don't need to practice it. All you have to do is practice your value and worth. That's it. I'm grateful for who I am. I love who I am. I love who I'm becoming. I love where I'm going. I love my life. I love where I'm headed. That's all you have to do. And when things come up like this, people like this show up, say stupid stuff. When you're rooted in who you are, these things aren't much of a problem anymore. And when someone shows up, you're almost able to laugh it off. You're able to make eye contact and just go, are you kidding me? Did you actually just say that to someone you don't even know? The reason I'm saying all this is because I want you to take care of you. I want you to put you first. I want you to value you. I want people on the outside that have said things or will say things that are absolutely ludicrous to you or about you. I want you never to be rocked by them again. I want you to draw a line in the sand today. Enough is enough. You will not doubt your value and worth, and anybody that challenges it will be addressed in a respectful and calm manner, because people who act like that don't like people who are in control. You are in control of you. You are the boss of you. You are valuable. You are worthy. You have every right to have a peaceful, quiet, beautiful life. And from here on out, anybody that calls you a bitch is going to get the stare down. Do I have your agreement? If you value you, and you should, no one should ever get away with doing that to you. No, I'm not advocating for fighting. No, I'm not advocating for violence. I'm advocating for you acknowledging your value and worth and going, no more. No more. And there's nothing wrong with that. Any bully or any person who ever inserts judgment upon you directly in your physical space should not attempt it again. So, if anybody's ever tried this to you, you may not even have to ever deal with this again now that you've heard this. Because when your energy changes about it, people often that used to do things like this to you don't even show up. That's becoming my experience. I had a couple of people say some really stupid things. I addressed them with eye contact and said, are you kidding me? And I walked away, and it never happened again. Not by the same person. It's happened a few times, and now I've gone years without having an issue. Dear friends, you are valuable, you are wonderful, and you deserve a beautiful life. And if anybody's ever called you a bitch, no more. All right. It's been wonderful having this time with you, and I look forward to talking with you on the next episode. Cheers, my friends.